Hello guys. In the previous video, we have seen how Bohr's atom model became unacceptable in the light of Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. Because we have seen according to Bohr's atom model, it was possible to determine the position and the momentum of an electron with absolute accuracy inside an atom. But we have learned that it is not possible. That was explained by Heisenberg in his uncertainty principle. So now we can speak of only in terms of probability of finding an electron at a particular position about the nucleus at any instant of time. So first let's understand the concept of probability, and then we will move on to electron probability. Suppose on a particular day there are clouds in the sky. We predict that there is a chance that it may rain. However, there is no certainty that it would definitely rain because the clouds may disappear. So we can express this by saying that there is a probability of rainfall. Same way, when you play a game of chess, a better player has a chance to win, but you cannot say with certainty that he will win definitely. So how can we say that the better player has a probability to win? So, probability provides the best possible description of a situation which cannot be described with certainty. So, if you are not so sure about whether this would happen or not, then we use this description of probability. So, to understand the electron probability, let us do a hypothetical experiment. So when we say hypothetical experiment, it is not possible, but we are going to imagine that this is happening. Let's take an atom of hydrogen. What is the atomic number of hydrogen? It is 1. So the number of electron in hydrogen is 1. So I'm going to take a picture of hydrogen atom, continuously at very short intervals of time. Say almost instantaneously, I'm going to take the picture of hydrogen atom. Actually, I'm going to take a set of pictures. Say for example, this is the first picture that I've taken for hydrogen atom. This is the nucleus, and this is where I find the electron in the first picture. And at the very faster rate, I'm taking another picture, and this is the second picture, and this is where the electron is in the second picture. And the third picture, my electron is here. In the fourth picture, the electron is here. So like this, imagine I'm taking some hundreds and hundreds of pictures, and I'm combining all this picture, and if all the pictures are superimposed, then the final picture looks like the honeybee around a beehive. So these are the dots, and these dots represent the electrons. So it is clear from the picture that most of the dots lie at a certain distance from the nucleus on all sides. And the probability of finding the electron is directly proportional to the intensity of dots. So therefore the electron spends most of its time in the volume of sphere bounded by that distance, and for rest of the time the electron can be found outside the volume of this sphere. So when you enter inside an atom, for instance, you can find the electron anywhere here. You have the probability of finding an electron anywhere in this region. So the region of space around the nucleus, which describes the probability of finding an electron in terms of dots. Okay, this is called as electron cloud. So this is the electron cloud for the only electron of the hydrogen atom. So you can define electron cloud as the region of space around the nucleus which describes the probability of finding an electron of given energy in terms of dots. So that is called as an electron cloud. And you should understand one thing, nowhere here the probability of finding an electron is equal to 0. Even at a very large distance from the nucleus, there is a finite but a very small probability of finding an electron. So this means the electron clouds do not have sharp boundaries as told by Bohr in his atom model. So you cannot give a sharp boundary for this atom. But for representation purpose, we usually draw atom with a definite boundary. But in reality, you cannot draw a definite boundary for an atom, which means you cannot have a definite boundary for the electrons. So the electron clouds do not have sharp boundaries. So For the sake of pictorial clarity and for convenience of representation, a boundary surface may be drawn which connects the points of equal probability and encloses a certain volume of the space around the nucleus within which the probability of finding an electron of given energy is maximum. So in this area, the probability of finding an electron is maximum. So if you go out, it doesn't mean the electron will not be there. There is a possibility of finding the electron, but it has a very, very less possibility. So this area enclosed here has more probability of finding an electron. So that space is called as atomic orbital. So atomic orbital is defined as the three-dimensional space around the nucleus within which the probability of finding an electron of given energy is maximum. So just now we have defined electron cloud. It is a region of space around the nucleus where the probability of finding an electron is described. If you have the probability of finding an electron a maximum, and then that space is called as atomic orbital. So here you should know the difference between orbit and orbitals. The orbit is a well-defined circular path around the nucleus in which the electrons revolve. A orbital is a three-dimensional space around the nucleus within which the probability of finding an electron is maximum. So this is a well-defined circular path, but orbital, it tells about the three-dimensional space around the nucleus where the probability of finding an electron is maximum. And the second point, orbit represents the planar motion of an electron around the nucleus. Just you would have seen in Bohr's atom model, we draw a circle. Inside the circle, we draw the electrons. So it represents a planar motion, but this orbital represents a three-dimensional motion of an electron around the nucleus. And this orbit is not in accordance with wave character of electrons and uncertainty principle. You know, we have seen in the previous video. So when talk about orbit, it is not in accordance with the wave character of electron. Only the particle nature of electron was taken into consideration, and also uncertainty principle is not taken. Same way here in orbital, it is in accordance with the wave character of electrons and uncertainty principle. And the last point, all orbits are circular or disc-like, but orbitals, they have different shapes. We will be seeing now. S orbitals are spherical and p orbitals are dumbbell shaped. So different orbitals have different shapes. So understand, orbital is nothing but it's a three-dimensional space around the nucleus within which you can have the probability of finding an electron to be maximum. And the last one, maximum number of electrons in an orbit is 2n square, and maximum number of electrons in an orbital, any orbital, is just 2. We will be seeing all that now. This n represents the shell number. When n is equal to n1, we say k shell, n is equal to 2 l shell. So that n represents the orbit number. So these are the main differences between orbit and orbital. So an atom consists of a large number of orbitals. They are distinguished from each other on the basis of their size, shape, and the direction in space, which means orientation. So these parameters of an orbital are expressed in terms of three numbers called as principal quantum number, azimuthal quantum number, and magnetic quantum numbers. And to represent the spin of the electron about its own axis, we have a fourth quantum number, which is called as spin quantum number. So quantum numbers may be defined as a set of four numbers which give complete information about the electron in an atom. You can consider these quantum numbers like the Aadhaar card. If you take the Aadhaar card, it has all the details about you. It has your postal address, it has your picture, it tells about your fingerprint. So you have all the details about you in the Aadhaar card. Same way, these set of four numbers gives you the address of an electron inside an atom. So these quantum numbers tell about the energy of the electron, the orbital occupied by the electron, size, shape and orientation of that orbital, and the direction of electron spin. So first one is principal quantum number represented as small n, azimuthal quantum number represented as L. It is also called as subsidiary or angular momentum quantum number and also called as orbital angular momentum. Third one is magnetic quantum number represented as M and spin quantum number S. In some books they would have represented azimuthal as M to the base L, magnetic as M to the base L and spin as M to the base S. Azimuthal is represented as L only, not as M. So let's see one by one in detail. So the first quantum number is principal quantum number, and it tells you about the approximate distance of the electron from the nucleus, that is size of the electron cloud. That number tells you the distance of the electron cloud from the nucleus. And second point, the maximum number of electrons present in any given shell. So it is taken as so the approximate distance of the electron from the nucleus, it is represented by a shell, and the principal quantum number can give you the number of electrons present in any given shell. This is the formula 2n square. See, if this is the first shell, n is equal to 1. This is the first approximate distance of the electron cloud from the nucleus and it is represented as 1. So 2n square, there will be 2 electrons here, and this is represented as k. We give designation for each shell, which I've seen in Bohr's atom model itself. And then if n is equal to 2, then it is represented as L, and the number of electrons would be, n is 2 here, so 2 2s are 4, 4 2s are 8, so there would be 8 electrons. Same way here, 3 3s are 9 into 2, 18, so there would be 18 electrons. So this principal quantum number tells you the approximate distance of the electron from the nucleus and maximum number of electrons present in any given shell using this formula, and the energy of the electron in any shell. We have studied the formula. En is equal to minus 1312 divided by n square kilojoule mole inverse. So using that formula you can calculate the energy of the electron also. So principal quantum number tells about the shells, that is the size of the electron cloud. The second quantum number is azimuthal quantum number represented as L. It gives you the number of subshells present within any main shell. You know, different electrons may have different angular momentum. So the electrons within the same shell occupy different energy levels. So we call that energy levels as sublevels or subshells. So inside the shells we have different energy levels. So this azimuthal quantum number tells about that subshells present within any main shell, and it tells about the shapes of the subshells. So for a given value of n, L can have values from 0 to n minus 1. Say for example, we have n is equal to 1. For that, L value will be equal to 0 to n minus 1. So n minus 1 is again 0. So L is equal to 0. For n is equal to 2, L is equal to 0, 1. So here it has only 1 values. Here it has 2 values. For n is equal to 3, the values could be 0, 1, 2. So there are 3 values. For n is equal to 4, L is equal to 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 values. So first shell, okay, which is represented as K shell, has only one subshell. Second shell, which is L shell, has 2 subshells because it has 2 values. Third shell has 3 subshells and fourth shell will have 4 subshells. How do we designate shells? We designate them as K, L, M, N, depending upon the value of n. If n is equal to 1, it is K shell, n is equal to 2, L shell, like that. Same way, we have designations for subshells. When L is equal to 0, we call that as S subshell. L is equal to 1, P. L is equal to 2, it is D. L is equal to 3, it is called as F subshell. So inside shells, we have subshells. So shells are designated as KLMN and subshells are designated as SPDF. So KLMN are designated, and we look at these numbers, n values. Same way for designation for subshells, we look for the L values. Now the third quantum number is magnetic quantum number, which is represented as m. It tells about the number of orientations which the orbitals take up. Orientations, they are nothing but the directions. And the second thing, the number of orbitals present within the same shell, subshell. So please try to recall what is orbital. Orbital is the region of space around the nucleus where the probability of finding an electron. So there are different orbitals with different shapes, and each quantum number tell about different orbitals in orbits. So now magnetic quantum number tells about the number of orientations which the orbitals take up and the number of orbitals present within the same subshell. So to put it in an easy way, n value, which is principal quantum number, tells about the energy levels. Azimuthal quantum number tells about the sublevels in the energy levels. We call that sublevels as subshells. And magnetic quantum number tells about the number of orbitals in that subshell. So for a given value of L, M can have values from minus L to plus L. See, for S subshell, what was the L value? 0. So M can have just 0 value. So how many values are there? Just one value. So only one orbital is there in S subshell. Now coming to P subshell, L is equal to 1. I've told you if L is equal to 1, M can have values from minus 1 to plus 1 through 0. So M is equal to minus 1, 0, plus 1. So how many values are there? 1, 2, 3. 3 values. So there will be 3 orbitals in P subshell. So it will be oriented in 3 different directions. See, Px, Py, Pz. D subshell, L is equal to 2. So M can have minus 2, minus 1, 0, plus 1, plus 2. So there are 5 values. So D can have 5 orbitals. We designate that as dxy, dyz, dzx, dx square, y square and dz square. Same way for F subshell, L value is equal to 3. So M can have values minus 3, minus 2, minus 1, 0, plus 1, plus 2, plus 3. So how many orbitals are there? 7 orbitals are there. So from this, you can understand S can have only one orientation, P can have 3 orientations, and D can have 5 orientations, and F can have 7 orientations. So the magnetic quantum number tells about the number of orbitals present within the same subshell. And the last quantum number is spin quantum number. You know, an electron in an atom moves around the nucleus. Same way, electron can also spin about its own axis, just like how Earth goes around the sun, and it can also rotate on its own axis. Just like that, electron in an atom not only moves around the nucleus but also spins on its own axis. So this number, spin quantum number, gives the information about the direction of spinning of the electron present in any orbital. I've told you already, in each orbital there can be only 2 electrons. So if one electron rotates in clockwise direction, the other will rotate in anti-clockwise direction. So to represent that, spin quantum number has 2 values. It can have only 2 values for a given value of M. It has plus half and minus half. So plus half represents clockwise spinning of electron, and minus half represents anti-clockwise spinning of electron. And we usually represent the spin of electron as an upward arrow for clockwise direction and downward arrow for anti-clockwise direction. So now we have seen 4 different quantum numbers. Now to get an idea, we will consolidate all these 4 quantum numbers and see them as a whole picture. So the first quantum number is n. If n is 1, what shell is that? K shell. N is equal to 2, L shell. N is equal to 3, M shell. Please remember, quantum numbers are like the address of an electron in an atom. So when you write all these 3 quantum numbers, you can know where your electron is present inside an atom. So let's see how to understand that. So when I write n value as 1, then my electron is in the first shell. When I write n value is equal to 2, my electron is in the L shell. Same way, n is equal to 3, M shell. So, and I've told you this, from this n you can find out the total number of electrons in each shell using the formula 2n square. K shell can have 2 electrons, L can have 8 electrons, M can have 18 electrons. Now coming to azimuthal quantum number. This is principal quantum number. Now coming to azimuthal quantum number. For each n value you can write L value. When n is equal to 1, L is equal to 0. n is equal to 2, L can be 0 and 2. When n is equal to 3, L can have 0, 1, 2. And now, when L is equal to 0, what subshell is that? S. See, when L is equal to 0, it is S. When L is equal to 0, again this is S subshell. When L is equal to 1, it represents P subshell. L is equal to 1, P subshell. When L is equal to 3, it is D subshell. When L is equal to 3, then it is F subshell. So, N tells about the shells, L tells about the subshells. Now coming to the M, which is magnetic quantum number, it tells you about the orientation. So when L is equal to 0, M is equal to 0, which means it has only one value. So only one orientation. Look here, L is equal to 0, 0. Again L is equal to 0, you have M value 0. So in all the three cases, there is only one orientation possible, which is usually represented as one box. So this box represents one orientation, sorry. So S can have only one orientation. See, this is S orbital, this is also S orbital, and I've told you in each orbital there would be 2 electrons. See, upward arrow, downward arrow, which is clockwise spinning of electron, anti-clockwise spinning of electron. Now coming to L value 1. Okay, so 1, how many M values are there? 3. Look here, 1, 3 M values are there. So there are 3 possible orientations. So Px, Py, Pz. See, here also Px, Py, Pz. So in each orbital, you have 2 electrons, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, totally 6 electrons. And coming to L is equal to 2, there are 5 values for M. See, so how many orientations are possible? 5 orientations, and we are putting 5 boxes. In each orbital, you have 2 electrons, so totally 10 electrons. So remember, S can have a maximum of 2 electrons, P subshell can have a maximum of 6 electrons, D subshell can have a maximum of 10 electrons, and F can have 14 electrons. So K shell has totally 2 electrons, L can have 8, M can have 18. So to understand it clearly, you just have an imagination of a apartment. If you have an apartment having some 5 to 6 floors, each floor represents the shell. Ground floor, let's take the ground floor as the first floor. First floor, second floor, third floor, fourth floor and fifth floor. Each floor represents the shell. So let's give n value 1, 2, 3, 4 to each floor. And in each floor, there could be any number of rooms. So according to this, in the first floor, we have just only one room, okay, which is named as S. In the second floor, we have 2 rooms, which are named as S and P. And the third floor, we have 3 rooms, 0, 1, 2, which is represented as SPD. If you are going to that apartment, you can go to any floor and you can occupy any room. So, if you are going to the first floor, you don't have any choice. You just have one room, you can occupy this room. If you are going to the second floor, you have 2 possibilities. You have 2 rooms, you can either go to S or to the P. If you are going to the third floor, you have 3 rooms. You have S, P, D. You can go to either of these 3 rooms. So, this is easy picture of the atom model. So you have quantum numbers to tell you about the electrons. So principal quantum number talks about shells, azimuthal quantum number tells you about the subshells, and magnetic quantum number tells you about the orientations. So same way, if you are occupying this room, for example S room, you can move in only one possible direction. Same way, if you go to P subshell, which means that room, you can move in 3 different directions. If you are going to the D room, you can move in 5 different directions. So same way, consider yourself as electrons, and electrons occupying shells. Inside the shells, they have subshells. Inside the subshells, they have different orientations. So look at this picture. So this is the first shell, K shell. For n is equal to 1, inside that you have just 1s orbital. In 1s orbital, there could be 2 electrons. In L subshell, okay, there could be 8 electrons, but inside L subshell, we have 2 subshells, 2s and 2p. And I told you S can have 2 electrons, P can have 6 electrons maximum, and D can have 10 electrons. In M shell, n is equal to 3. See, you have 3 subshells, 3s, 3p, 3d. And in n shell you have 4 subshells, 4s, 4p, 4d, 4f. See, for n is equal to 1, L is equal to 0. For n is equal to 2, L is equal to 0, 1. For n is equal to 3, L is equal to 0, 1, 2. So when L is equal to 0, it is S. See, here also 0 S, here also 0 S. But this S is in the K shell, this S is in the L shell, this S in the M shell. So how to distinguish between these three? For that purpose, we will put this N number before this. See, this S is in the K shell, so put that 1 here, so 1S. This S is in the L shell, for that L shell N is equal to 2, put that 2 here. So 2S, 2P, because they belong to N is equal to 2 L shell. And here these SPD belong to third shell. So to refer that, to indicate that, we are putting 3 in the prefix. So 3s, 3p, 3d, 4s, 4p, 4d. So if I say 1s, where is my electron? It is in the first shell and it is in the S subshell. If I say 3d, where is your electron? It is in the third shell and it is in the D subshell. So combining everything, these are the subshells in the atom. See, 1s, 2s, 2p, 3s, 3p, 3d, 4s, 4p, 4d, 4f. So this 1 represents what? The shell to which the electron belongs, and this letter represents the subshell to which your electron belongs. Always remember, S can hold 2 electrons, P 6 electrons, D 10 electrons, and F 14 electrons. And now look here, I told you in K shell there are 2 electrons. Those 2 electrons are present in this subshell 1s2. Here we have 8 electrons. These 8 electrons are distributed between these 2 subshells. 2s having 2 electrons, 2p having 6 electrons. Same way, these 18 electrons are distributed in these 3 subshells. 3s having 2 electrons, 3p 6 electrons, and 3d 10 electrons. So same way, 32 electrons are distributed here. So this is the picture of quantum numbers, and from quantum numbers you can know the address of an electron in an atom. Now we are going to see the shapes of these orbitals. We have written SPD, and I've told you S can have spherical shape, P can have dumbbell shape, and we are going to see that different shapes of the orbitals. As already defined, an orbital is the region of space around the nucleus within which the probability of finding an electron of given energy is maximum. So the shape of the electron cloud we obtain gives the shape of the orbital. So each orbital has different shapes. Now coming to S orbital, it has a spherical shape. See, this is a spherical shape, and this is the picture of 1s orbital. Different S orbitals and different shells, have different aspects. Now look here, this is 1s. In 1s, the probability of 1s electrons is maximum near the nucleus. So all these dots represent the electrons. So inside this 1s orbital, the probability of finding the electrons is maximum near the nucleus. As you move out, it decreases as the distance from the nucleus increases. So as you move away from the nucleus, the probability of finding the electron decreases. So that would be the shape of 1s orbital. Now coming to 2s, here the probability of finding the electron is maximum near the nucleus, and then it decreases to 0, and again then it increases. And this intermediate region of space, where the probability of finding the electron is 0. I told you the probability of finding the electron keeps on increasing, then it becomes 0, and then again it increases. So this intermediate region where the probability is 0 is called a nodal surface. So in that nodal surface, the probability of finding an electron is 0. So there is no possibility of finding an electron in that area. So in 1s, there is no node. We don't have any region like this. In 2s, you have one node. Same way in 3s, you will be having 3 nodes. So 2s orbital differ from 1s orbital in having one node. Same way 3s orbital differs from 1s and 2s by having 2 nodes. And the energy of the s orbital increases as the principal quantum number increases. See, 1s has less energy, and then 2s having a greater energy, and then 3s having much more higher energy. So this is the order of energy of the different s orbitals in different shells. Now the shape of p orbital, it has a dumbbell shape. This is the shape of a dumbbell which you use to do some exercises. So this is the shape of p orbital. On the basis of probability calculations, it is found that the probability of finding p electrons is maximum in two lobes on the opposite side of the nucleus. These are the two lobes on the opposite sides of the nucleus where the probability of finding a 2p electron is maximum. So this gives rise to a dumbbell shape. Just like we have seen the nodal plane in s orbital, there is a plane passing through the nucleus on which the probability of finding the electron is almost zero. We call that as a nodal plane. And we have seen the m value for p orbital is -1, 0, +1. So it has three different orientations and it is designated as px, py, pz. So these p orbital can orient itself in three different directions. Which means if you have 2p, so you can write that 2p as 2px, 2py, 2pz. Same way if you take 3p, you write it as 3px, 3py, 3pz. But 3p orbitals belonging to a particular energy level have equal energies. Which means if you take 2p, you have three different orbitals, 2px, 2py, 2pz. All the three, they belong to the same energy level 2. So they all have equal energies. But 2p and 3p will be having different energies. But 3p orbitals belonging to the same energy level have equal energies. And remember, we don't have 1p. We just start having p orbitals from L shell. So we start from 2p. So 2p orbital, there will be no node. Just like in 1s we didn't have node. Same way in 3p orbital we have one node. And to calculate the number of nodes, we have this formula n minus L minus 1. Formula we are using here is to calculate the nodes, and that nodes are called as spherical or radial nodes. We have one more type of nodes which we will be seeing now. So we have spherical nodes and also called as radial nodes. The other node is planar node. All the three orbitals s, p, d, all the three have spherical or radial nodes, but only p and d orbitals have planar node and not s orbital. So now see, number of nodes you are calculating here with this formula n minus L minus 1. So for example, you take 2p. 2p means what is the n value? 2. So 2 minus what is the L value? For p, L value is equal to 1. So 2 minus 1 minus 1, that would be equal to 2 minus 2, 0. So number of nodes in 2p is 0. So no nodes. And coming to here, 3p. What is the n value? 3 is the n value. What is the L value? For p, L value is equal to 1. So 3 minus 1 minus 1. So 3 minus 2, which should be equal to 1. So 3p orbital has one node. You can use this formula to calculate the spherical nodes in s orbital also. Say for example 3s. In 3s, n is equal to 3. For s, L is equal to 0. So 3 minus 1, 2 nodes. I told you in 3s orbital there will be 2 nodes. Nodes are the region where the probability of finding an electron is 0. And the last one is shape of d orbitals, and it has having a complex structure. So we will not go very deep into it, just to have an idea, because you will be needing this in 12th standard to learn a few topics. So that's the reason why I am teaching you now. So for d orbitals, we had 5 m values, because L value for d is 2. So m values will be minus 2, minus 1, 0, plus 1 and plus 2. So 5 orientations are possible, and these are the 5 orientations. So we call this as a boundary surface diagram. So the 5 d orbitals are designated as dxy, dxz, dzx, dx square y square, dz square. So remember, for all these three, dxy, dxz and dyz, the lobes will be lying in between the axis. See, xyz axis, it will be lying. It might look same, but this axis differs. Here it is xy, here it is xz, here it is zx. So in these two cases, the lobes lie along the axis. So these three, the lobes lie in between the axis. Here it is lying along the axis. You can use the same formula to find nodes in d orbitals also. So I told you there are two types of nodes, spherical and planar nodes. For spherical, it will be present in SPD, and the formula to find out spherical nodes is n minus L minus 1. And planar, it will be present in p and d orbitals. Planar node, to calculate planar node, it is simply equal to the L value. See, for p, what is 2p, what is the L value? 0. So no planar, 1. So there will be one planar node. For d, what is the L value? 2. So how many planar nodes will be there? 2 planar nodes. So you can use this formula. So total number of nodes will be equal to n minus 1, which means spherical plus planar. Total number of nodes in any orbital is equal to n minus 1. Say for example, if you are taking n is equal to 3. So total number of nodes in that will be 3 minus 1, 2 nodes. In that you can calculate how many spherical nodes are there and planar nodes are there. Hope you understood these electron probability, orbitals and principal quantum number. I've tried my level best to make you understand and make it easier. Hope you understood. Thank you.